Welcome. Hope everyone's having a good day so far. We're going to take a few minutes this morning to discuss the standard changes that occurred as a result of the Bellevue, Washington, November CALEA conference. There wasn't a whole lot of changes made, but there were a few, which we'll discuss momentarily. First of all, just to give you a background on myself, for those who don't know me, I'm the fairly new regional program manager for the Northeast and now the Del Mar regions. So I have from Delaware, Maryland, District of Columbia, right through up to Maine. I started with CALEA in March of this year after serving with the Norwalk, Connecticut Police Department for 40 years, the last 10 as the chief. And during my time with the city of Norwalk, I served as the accreditation manager. I was an assessor for CALEA, team leader, and a commissioner the last 3 years before I retired in January of this year. So for all of you, if you ever have any questions or concerns, please reach out to me. My cell phone is generally the best way to get me, or email. My cell is 203-337-6132. You can also call the CALEA number if you lose that cell phone number, and I will get back to you. So just a quick reminder that after each conference, Power DMS gets updated. Usually about 2 weeks following the conference, Power DMS is updated with the new version. And right now, as of about a week ago, we're on version 6.19. That's for the law enforcement manual, and campus security and training were also updated. So just make sure you're looking at the most updated version of the manual. One caveat, if you have a review that's coming in the next couple months, we recommend that you do not update your manual and just remain in the current version until after your review is completed. Once your review is done, you can then update. It'll just avoid some confusion. There's also a button in Power DMS. You'll see it'll tell you that you're not in the newest version of the manual, and you can also update as a result of that if you know you're not in the newest version. So into the standards. So this is one of the standards that was revised at the conference in Bellevue, and this is just a minor revision. You'll see under bullet E, just a little re-wordsmithing. It used to say indexing, purging, and revising directives. It's now changed to purging and archiving. And the reason for that was with the electronic storage now, the commission felt that archiving and purging are the better terms to use. Paper files aren't used as much, although some still do, so they wanted to cover both electronic and paper files. You'll see that in communications, it was also updated similarly, purging and archiving in 215. And in the training academy, also, they brought them all the standards together so that they match. And in the campus security as well, you'll see purging and archiving. So very minor change, but you'll notice that it says that the agency has a written directive system that includes purging and archiving. So you may have to do a little wordsmithing with your policy. 4128 under the law enforcement administration of pharmaceuticals. This is a new standard, and it requires a written directive establishing procedures for the administration of pharmaceuticals by trained agency personnel. And when you see this, the red and the green and the crossouts, I'm just showing you the discussions that took place by the SRIC and staff that came up with the final version. We also obviously look at comments that are received from the field. Any standards that are going to be changed, it'll go out to the field for comment, and the SRIC does look at those comments that you send in. So you will need a written directive for administering pharmaceuticals if your agency does that. Obviously, this might be non-applicable if this is not something that you do. Law Enforcement 8414, security of controlled substances, weapons for training. Again, a little wordsmithing here. They added whether procured, seized, or forfeited. There was some confusion on the part of clients and as well as staff and CSMs as to, was this just asset forfeiture? Was this just seized? So the commission added whether procured, seized, or forfeited. There's some agencies that do purchase items that are used that are controlled substances or weapons, ordnance for bomb teams, etc. They also added a glossary definition: agency owned or leased property, equipment, or supplies procured through the agency's fiscal management process. May also include software licenses, digital data, intellectual property, copyrights, or trademarks. And again, this is not a new standard, just a revision. Similarly, campus security, they created this standard to match up with the law enforcement standard. So for campus security now, the same standard that you see in law enforcement now has been added to campus security, and that's also a CS1 standard, so it is mandatory for all agencies. 3417 in campus security. 2215 in law enforcement. Again, this is an LE1 as well. This is some rewording. Used to say victim witness services, line of duty deaths. It now says employment related injury or death. And in the standard itself, there was also some wordsmithing. It now says a written directive defines assistance services to be rendered by agency personnel and their families following a serious injury or death while in the performance of work-related duties. So this covers all agency personnel and their families following a serious injury or death while in the performance of work-related duties. So it does broaden it a little bit, but it's still very similar to the intent initially, but it does broaden it a little bit. Campus security. This the law enforcement change brought it into more alignment with the campus security, which was already kind of wordsmithed in that manner. And the commentary for campus security was changed just slightly to match up with law enforcement, using the word personnel and work related. But that's a commentary change. 129 in law enforcement, it's also an LE1 standard. This was the bias in policing standard. It now reads unlawful or improper bias in public safety. And they're using the word public safety to broaden the scope, and it matches now with campus security as well. So it now requires a written directive governing unlawful or improper bias in public safety, and at a minimum includes the following: a prohibition against unlawful or improper bias in public safety, initial training prior to assignment, and annual refresher training and biased issues, including legal aspects for all affected personnel, a documented annual administrative review of activities with the potential for bias to include, but not limited to, traffic and field contacts, asset forfeiture efforts, citizen complaints, and any corrective measures taken. You'll notice that some of this was in the commentary previously. It's now been brought into the standards amongst the bullets, and it has been broadened again just a little bit. Campus security, again, wordsmithing to bring that standard in line with the law enforcement version of the standard. And that's also a CS1 standard. Law enforcement 81-212, alarm procedures. This used to refer to private security alarms, and there was some confusion among the CSMs and clients as to exactly what was meant by the standard. Some felt that if you did not have alarm monitoring in your police department or communication center, then the standard did not apply to you. Others felt that that was only one part of the standard and that the standard was confusing. So the standard was rewritten, and now it simply says alarm procedures, and it requires a written directive establishing procedures for monitoring or receiving and dispatching security alarm information. So basically, this broadens it. So whether you receive alarms directly or you get alarms from central monitoring or some other private security center, you're still obligated to be in compliance with this standard, 81-212. And I'm going to expect that many are going to have to reword some policies as a result of this standard being revised. I know in my old agency, we interpreted the standard as not applicable because we did not take private security alarms or monitor security alarms directly in our dispatch. But obviously, that's been clarified now to be receiving and dispatching. Law Enforcement 4114, agency service animals. A written directive governs agency owned and controlled animals. You'll see that that hasn't changed. However, in the commentary, you'll see that the standard applies to any service and comfort therapy animal. They took out the words other than a canine. The standard is not applicable for police canines utilized for searching or apprehending suspects, missing persons, or narcotics or explosives detection. And my looks like my bullets got disappeared there, the A, B, C, D bullets. But this just clarifies that this standard is related to comfort and therapy animals as opposed to police canines. And you'll see in the commentary for 4115 that was changed to remove the comfort and therapy and put in this is applicable to canines exclusively utilized for comfort and therapy purposes. So if you have other animals, what the other standard would apply. If you have canines, then you'll see that this standard would apply. So just really take a look at the wording for each of those. The intent of this was to remove comfort and therapy animals and clarify that they did not need the same level of training. And there was a variety of comfort and therapy animals that are being used now. Unbeknownst to me, I learned that there are some agencies that have use a rabbit as a therapy animal. So they wanted to clarify that police service canines, what we traditionally knew as police service canines, are treated differently than therapy animals. Again, under campus security, the same commentary information was added to clarify as well. Appendix change. So if you're not aware, the ATF recently classified the newest version of the Axon's taser, the ECW. There's a certain version that fires with a primer. The ATF clarified that and said that that is a firearm under federal law. As a result of that, CALEA wanted to clarify that we were considering that still as an electronic controlled weapon for the purposes of our standards, so that the training requirements would not be similar to a firearm requirement, that it still would be considered as an electronic controlled weapon for our purposes. It's still in federal law a firearm, but for CALEA's purposes, it is still considered an electronic control weapon. So the training requirements will not change if you're using that newest version of Axon's taser or ECW that has the primer. You still can consider that an electronic controlled weapon, and your training would remain the same as the older versions of the taser. And again, this is just changed in campus security as well. And the hyperlinks have been changed in the Power DMS manual. Again, this is just in the glossary as well. Proficiency for electronic controlled weapons. Again, clarifying that all the hyperlinks were properly navigated. And those were the changes that came out of the Bellevue November conference. So again, I just want to remind you that if you have an on-site or a remote review coming in the next few months, we recommend that you don't update your manual until after that's completed. Once it is, then we recommend you make sure you're on the newest version of whatever manual, whether it's law enforcement, campus security, training, etc. If you have any issues or difficulty updating, or you have questions on the standards, obviously you first reach out to me and I'll try to direct you or find a person that will be able to assist you. I'm not a Power DMS expert, but I do have some training in Power DMS. And just like a lot of you, just from having to do it, you pick up things. So I'll be happy to help you. Again, if you ever need anything from me, use my cell phone or email, easiest ways to get me. And I usually get back to you, very promptly. If you don't hear from me within, a couple hours, then definitely reach out again, because that means something went wrong and I didn't get your message, because I generally get back to you very quickly, especially during business hours. I do have this presentation. I could make it available for you. It is being recorded, and I'm hoping to then post this on our YouTube channel or through a link that I'll send out. And again, thanks for joining the webinar. Not many changes, but a couple that you need to be aware of. And with that, we will close this short webinar, and I appreciate you logging in, and we'll see you soon.